you just said when we were talking before, we are the disappearing middle class. Talk to me about, kind of your personal story, how long you've lived in Wisconsin, and kind of what you as a married couple have been dealing with the last few years.
Okay, I'll try to make it kind of quick. We grew up around the Philadelphia area. We moved to the Hudson Valley when my husband got a job with IBM. And we lived up there for 12 years, had 3 little kids. We were raising our kids. Things were going pretty well. And then they laid a whole bunch of people off and closed my husband's plant. And at that
In the Hudson Valley?
In the Hudson Valley. And at that time, when all of these people went out of work, all the supporting businesses also didn't have jobs anymore. So they went under as well. So then we had the housing market just bottomed right out from under us. No equity. You lost all your equity. There were no IT jobs in the area. And he literally went all up and down the East Coast for 10 months and could not find work. His 2 job offers, one was in Bosnia, this was during wartime, and the other one was Wisconsin, and that's how we got here. We came here, and when we came here, we both took cuts in pay. I was a med tech out there, and that's, I think, what got us through. I was kind of a mom that worked weekends, and then I went to full-time when he lost his job. So we came out here, and he got laid off again. We survived that one, but each time, they take their hits. And so eventually he got a job with the county, which was his most stable and best job, and then we got attacked by Scott Walker. So we have been, hanging on now for quite some time. We've had some time to, get our feet under us, but all this is destabilizing, and I think that that's probably the biggest point I would personally like to make, is how destabilizing this is to families. I really believe this hurt my children a lot. You can't rip children away from everything that they know and love in the way that they have been ripped away, all of our families back east. And you lose a lot of relationships. So we are the struggling middle class, and we're still struggling now because I lost my job in 2008 with the economic downturn. And then our daughter got ill, and I've been caring for her and our grandson, so I haven't been back to work. So we're now living in double income bills on a single income.
And when you say it rips children apart, do you mean they have to leave the communities they know because you have to move wherever the jobs are?
Yes, I do. I mean, they leave family, they leave friends, they leave their school, their home. And my husband had to live apart from us twice for months at a time. So that was very difficult, too. We weren't living really large. We were living our life like we wanted, raising our kids and just we were having a nice life. Nothing fancy, but it was a good life.
And when you got your county job, she mentioned that that's when Walker started assaulting. Can you talk about your story with what Walker personally went after in terms of your job?
Well, yeah, I got the county job not exactly when Walker. When we were in New York and they closed the plant, the factory. It was a rural area, and the plant I worked at had 9,600 people in a rural area. So I was out of work, like she said, for 10 months. And I got a job with Bell Atlantic out here doing third-party maintenance contracts on mainframes. It was a good job, but after 5 years, they sold the division I worked for, another layoff. So when I hit the county...
Sorry, when all these places you've been laid off, were they offshoring to other countries or just other states?
The IBM job in '93 is when the big layoff happened at IBM, and there was plants in Germany, France, and Japan that also built and configured mainframes. So they did very similar work, but those countries all have nationalized unions, and if they closed those plants, they would still have to pay those people for the next 5 years. But they could close an American plant and just pay severance and cut everybody loose right there, which is what they did. And that's kind of the American way, right? So when we came out here, and when I got the job with Bell Atlantic, it was in New York, 4 out here. The UW had 3 mainframes, and they needed somebody that knew them well, could configure them. And Bell Atlantic sold the division that Business System Services division I worked for. They didn't outsource that. They sold it to a company called Decision One. And who actually owned Decision One, I don't know. It was, rumor has it was made up of IBM and other people to get their maintenance contracts back. They bought the Business System Services division just to destroy it. And yeah, maybe so. I'm really not sure. I don't think they outsource it because it's work that has to be done here. Possibly the Transglobal National Company was offshore. I don't know. I'm not sure. But when I took the job with the county, that was in '98. So that was quite a ways before, and there was no union. There was 4 bargaining units: highway, social workers, clerical, and Badger Prairie, the CNA workers at a nursing home. But I'm a professional, and there was no professionals union. In 2004, I just smelled layoffs coming, outsourcing. Bush was president, and they were pushing cloud, all government stuff to go to the cloud.
And spending trillions overseas on fake wars.
Absolutely, yeah. And so anyway, I went to AFSCME, and I asked them, what do I need to do? I want to organize the professionals. And they helped me. And I went, I did the card check, I went through the process, and
Explain that to the audience, what that means.
well, you can't just start a union because you feel like it. There's a lot of people in your job class. Like, I'm an IT worker. There's people that work in the medical examiner's office, accountants, public health professionals. There are a lot of other workers that are professionals they were considered non-supervising management. They weren't in a bargaining unit. So for the card check, what I had to do is I got a list of from AFSCME identifying 125 people that were professionals, non-supervising professionals. And from that list, I went around and talked to people about if they would want to organize into a union local. And some were positive and some were not. Out of the 125, I got enough cards signed, better than 50%, to hold an election. And out of the 125, 80 chose to go union. So we became a local. So the way unions were set up, if you're in that class, you have to pay dues and be a member. Okay, that's just the way it was. We had enough people who agreed that they wanted it, so we organized. Went through the card check, we organized, and I was a vice president then, in the beginning. 2004 is when we had our first, that's when our first contract was 2004, 5, 6. It was a 3-year contract. So now our second was 7, 8, 9, okay? And in 2009, it was after the crash, and the county was in a bad way. We had a contract coming up, and the county told us that they couldn't meet our contract agreement. So Walker was the county exec in Milwaukee County, and I think this is a real good, it shows a real good distinction between what people can do if they favor labor and what people don't have to do. At the time, Scott Walker was county exec in Milwaukee. Joe Parisi was county exec here in Dane County. Well, sort of. He was not quite. He was, Kathleen Falk was county exec then, but Walker, when we were told that the county couldn't meet our contract, our response was, what can we do to help? So we went to the table. The county exec was very willing to work with us. We came up with labor-saving ideas. We had a 3% increase coming in December. We gave that up. We took voluntary days off without pay. We saved about $3 million. And bottom line is there was no layoffs. They were going to lay 50 people off to make the contract. We went through that, and they didn't lay anybody off. Milwaukee County, Walker said to the unions that we have a contract, we can't make it, and they just laid off like 75 people. So, I mean, that to me was worth organizing. We saved 50 to 75 people the pain of going through what Chris and I went through in New York. And that was hard. So, all right, and
I think what's bittersweet about that is it's a success story,
yes,
but it's one that you shouldn't have to do, because ideology, neoliberal Republican, that crashes economies, and it's a domino effect from there, and the county has no money because the economy as a whole is under the tank, makes you have to take voluntary days off. makes you have to forego a raise. So it's a success story, but to me, it's one that union members like you are having to give up what's owed to you.
Well, let's remember too the contract 2006, 7, and 8 happened in the when our 7, 8, and 9 was our 3-year contract. The market crashed in 2008, big time. Everything crashed. The county had AAA bonds that went down. Everybody was hurt by the economy. So, I mean, you could either work together and maintain everybody at a little bit less, but continue to work together and value our relationships, or you can be like Walker and just say employee management, do what business did and just whack people. Less people to worry about, don't worry about, we'll privatize it. And that's not the way to be. That's really not. But to get to Act 10, when Act 10 happened, the state really took a big hit. At that time of Act 10, in 2011, we had contracts out until 2014, the end of 2014. So we were able to work with things a little bit with the county about what we are going to do. Scott Walker didn't outlaw labor unions per se, but he limited everything a labor union can do. The only thing a union could bargain for was a percentage of cost of living. They couldn't really get any increases. They had no. I'm kind of blanking on the term.
Collective bargaining was essentially decimated.
Arbitration. They lost binding arbitration. If you're not sure what that is, what that means is if management and labor are discussing things and they cannot come to a decision, binding arbitration allows you to go to a third-party judge to listen to your arguments and make a decision. And with binding arbitration, that means both of you agree to accept that decision. Walker got rid of binding arbitration. So if you didn't come to a conclusion and you went to a binding arbitrator and the arbitrator sided with labor, it didn't matter. They didn't have to accept that. So the unions in the state were essentially powerless. So my local is made up of the professionals, and one of the groups in my local are the planning department that writes ordinance for the county board. And inside we have a civil service. Civil service, I don't know if you know what that is. There's state civil service for state employees, and it's kind of like a code of conduct, a way that we're going to conduct business. If we hire people, you have to have criteria that we need. If you're going to get rid of somebody, there's criteria. It's just a general guidelines of doing business. Scott Walker got rid of civil service. There is no state civil service. The county, however, did not. And one of the groups in my area are the planners, and they write ordinance for the county board. So what we did was we took all of our contracts and put them into one contract. And then the planners wrote ordinances to put those contracts into civil service. So it's not the same as a contract, but it is. We can no longer collectively bargain because we had to give up being a labor organization. We switched to we're not a labor union, we're now an employee group.
You said something before that stood out to me. You're like, that's just the American way. Yeah. What stands out to me as I go across the Midwest is people are just numb to basically being fucked and screwed by the government. Right.
I'm fighting all the time. I'm in here, I come in here, I come to hearings, I listen to what these criminals say in these rooms because we do have criminals in the state of Wisconsin. It's just a fact. And our state is being run into the ground, but I'm not going to give up. I was delegate to the Democratic Convention for Bernie, and I will keep fighting for all of the progressives on all of the down tickets, and I will keep coming here. I will keep coming and listening to these legislators and fighting them every minute. I don't think Jerry's given up either. It's very difficult, but I do agree with you. It does seem when you give concessions that you are giving up, and that's why I have a real difficult time with how everything stands right now politically, because I think I feel sometimes we're politically homeless.
Well, every day we're here. Chris's shirt, I don't know if you can read it, the Solidarity Sing-Along. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but since March of 2011, we've been here in the Rotunda every day from noon to 1. Fridays we're outside. But we sing here, and we sing anti-Walker songs and songs about labor and just good things about Wisconsin. They've arrested us for being here. We fought back, and unconstitutionally to do anything about what we're doing. So every day, whether they like it or not, we're here, and they hear us, and they know that we're not going away. And that's it.
Thanks so much, guys. I appreciate it.